What's up, people? What's up, people? What's up, people? It is your boy MM2K back again. Let me do something. Let me fix my mic a little bit. Hold on one second, y'all. Bring the mic a little bit closer to me so my voice is closer to the people. What's up, everybody? All right, so here's what's going on. This is a special show that I want to call the Saturday Checkup. All right. Now, what's the purpose of this show? The purpose of the show is normally SML would run at this time that this is airing, right? And SML was the variety show for me and Project Storm every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We talk about the latest and greatest in cloud gaming, mainly Stadia news. Sometimes we sprinkle a little bit of dedicated device news and all that other stuff. And then you guys would call in or leave us a Yappa comment and all that great stuff, right? Storm and I have talked, and we want to redo the format of SML. We want it to be a little bit more broader and not just focused on just cloud gaming or Stadia, because we game everywhere, right? So we want to have a wider spectrum as far as what SML covers. So right now, SML is going back in the lab to be reconstructed, and it's going to come back out anew sometime in 2022. All right. Until then, I don't want there to be a void of the Stadia content that you guys have gotten used to. I know I've been on hiatus. We had to do a move. The latest parts of this move is almost done, and we were off air for a couple weeks. So what we want to do is we want to create content that will still maintain itself and entertain you and keep you connected during the time slots that you've gotten used to, with as minimal disruption as possible. So we're going to do the Saturday Checkup up until at least the end of the year, and depending upon your response to it will depend upon whether we continue it past the end of the year. What is the morning checkup or the Saturday Checkup going to consist of? You'll see. I think you'll like it. But what we're going to do is we're going to allow an opportunity for people to call in as well, to leave comments and things like that. It's going to be interactive. You know what I'm saying? But we're going to switch it up a little bit from what you were getting from SML. And definitely it's going to be Stadia focused and centric. Okay. What I'm going to do today, though, is I'm going to go over some Stadia topics. And I'm going to ask that as I'm going over these topics, you guys leave your comments in the comment section below. If you want to leave a super chat, for people to converse with in the comment section, that'd be great. But I just wanted to give you guys a precursor, just a little taste of what you're going to be getting for the remainder of the year, again, to nullify the void in Stadia content because of certain things that are going over here and PNTS Network, all that good stuff. All right. So we got a few topics that we want to talk about. I want to talk about the Stadia save point. I want to talk about Stadia channels. What is the Stadia channels that have been mentioned? Course impressions that we've seen out there. And then last but certainly not least, let's talk about our buddy Tom Warren. Our good friend Tom Warren. But I haven't done the regular preliminaries. This is the Stadia Checkup. Or the Saturday Checkup, rather. And this is your boy MM2K of the PNTS Network and StadiaDosage. And I appreciate all of y'all for coming through. Do us a huge favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and rock those bells for notifications, please. So everybody knows when they can come and get these doses. We appreciate all of y'all straight up. All right. First and foremost, I want to talk about the Stadia save point. So with no further ado, let me show you something. Oh, hold on, no. Now, I can't do it here. I got to make sure there ain't no jank here first. Always got to remember that. There we go. Ain't no jank. Ain't no jank. Yeah. All right, let's do it. Here goes the Stadia save point November updates. This was released today. And it says here, it's time for another round of our Stadia Save Point series, recapping the new games, features, and updates on Stadia. In November, the Stadia Pro library reached 40 games for the first time. A mix of open world titles, sports games, adventures through new worlds, and blockbuster hits. All are available for subscribers to claim and play right away, including newly added pro games like Saints Row 4, Re-Elected, Dirt 5, Kimono Heroes, and 100 Days Winemaking Simulator. Not to mention Wavetale, which launched first on Stadia, a surprise reveal. Pro subscribers also enjoyed free play days for Ghost Recon Breakpoint and The Crew 2. Players explored many new games that launched on the Stadia Store in November, like showing off their moves in Just Dance 2022 and then creating their own fun in the Jackbox Party Pack 8. Meanwhile, players ease into holiday season with relaxing adventure games like Rayman Legends and Farming Simulator 22. On top of all these new games, November marked 2 years since Stadia's launch. Sales on the Stadia Premier Edition help players extend gameplay to their TVs, and Stadia Store deals offered hits like Far Cry 6 or FIFA 22 for less. Since Stadia's last anniversary in November 2020, 120 plus titles have arrived on the Stadia Store, including 10 games, trials, and demos free for any Stadia player, like Immortals Phoenix Rising, Riders Republic, and Crata. 19 titles, including Hitman 3 and Humankind, that have added Stadia features like State Share or Stream Connect. First on Stadia titles that are only playable there, like Wavetale, Hello Engineer, Outcasters, and Pixel Junk Raiders. Explore the feed on the web. November also brought a new Stadia feature. Now players can share their own captures and game states with others and see other community content for the games that they play. That's interesting. I thought that came in October, but I guess it came in November. There were Stadia Pro updates. 5 new games were added to the Stadia Pro library in November, and today an entire library of games is available to play with Stadia Pro. They give them all to you right here, which is a very impressive list. There are ongoing discounts for Pro subscribers. Check out the web or mobile Stadia Store for the latest. Let's take a look at these games. So again, there's a lot of indie games and maybe AA games in here, but there's a lot of AAA games in here. We got Hitman in here. What else we got in here? I'm gonna say they may not be AAA games, but these are highly anticipated games. Wise is a serious game. The Trails of Cold Steels, I think, are big ticket RPG games. We got PGA Tour 2K21 in here. Arc, which is a big ticket game. We also got Dark Riders, a little bit older, but we got Darksiders, 2 Definitive Edition. Let me see what else we got up in here. We got Mafia 3 Definitive Edition. We got Saints Row 4. Dirt 5 is in here. Destroy All Humans finally came up in there. The Falconeer, which you can consider that a AA game. But there are some good games in there, definitely. And we were looking at the Stadia Pro library through all of 2021, and it surpassed and outdid the other games on the other competing services. Let's bring that up. See if I can find that real quick for you. The nice little graphic from I can't find it. Oh, hold on. I know where it's at. I was looking in the wrong place. Oh. Let's check SSC Podcast. Let's check our links from there. Dynasty Warriors 9. Here it goes. Stadia Pro savings. Let's put this up here on the board for everybody to see, so you can get an appreciation for it. All right, so what are we doing here? Stop that. So we got this tweet that says this: the Pro subscription Google Stadia offered more games, more value, and more savings than PlayStation Plus and Xbox Gold in 2021. Information from Bryant Chappelle. And if you look at it, he did put up a new graphic. Let me see if we can find that new graphic from Bryant. He put up a new one because he left out February data for, there we go. Let me see. Here it goes. Here goes the right one. So if you look at what Stadia Pro was able to offer, they gave you 57 games with a value of $1,573.44. So not only did you get more games, but you got a bigger value altogether if you invested in Stadia Pro. All three of these services are $10 a month. And with Stadia Pro, you got access to 57 games with a total value of $1,573.44. Where PlayStation Plus gave you 37 games for a total of $1,430, and Games with Gold gave you 49 games for a price tag of $1,074.52. So Stadia outperformed them in the volume of games, not only in the volume of games that you got, but in total value that you got as well. So that's some great stuff. All right. So with that said, Stadia Pro is a heck of a value, right? And I don't think that's up for debate. I don't think that's up for debate. I think that a lot of people are misinformed when they say things like Stadia has no games and stuff like that, but that's on them. Because they're right there, we show you that they're missing out on some great value. And then you can look at the average meta of the games that are being offered, and you can see that the Stadia Metacritic is, I think it's like in the mid 70s or something like that. So we are talking about some very valuable games that are there. So definitely nothing to sneeze at, and a great value that was presented overall in 2021. Much more so that was presented in 2020. So those are all the games that are there now. November content launches on Stadia. So the singular games that came out on Stadia in November: Farming Simulator 22, Hunting Simulator 2, Just Dance 2022, Rayman Legends, Saints Row 4, Re-Elected, the Jackbox Party Pack 8, and Wave Tale. Those are the games that released on Stadia day and date. Well, except for Rayman Legend. Saints Row Re-Elected. Everything else launched day and date, I believe, on the platform. New content coming to Stadia announced in November. 9 to 5 and Hunting Simulator 2, which is out. So, cool stuff. I definitely think that November was a decent month. I think people were disappointed. When I say disappointed, some people were disappointed. I'm talking about those that I don't think understand the pivot that Stadia took going into 2021 and looking down the road in 2022. I think people were expecting Stadia to get more items day and date. And I'm not saying that would have been a bad thing, but when you make such a pivot that Stadia made, you have to have I don't want to say a singular focus, but you have to have a more honed in focus, right? They decided that they were not going to curate and develop content themselves, so they closed on SG&E, and they said, we're better off using those resources to try to improve games and get more games here. And I think when people initially heard that, and I get it, I think when people initially heard that, they thought that meant that, okay, SG&E isn't there any longer. You pick up the phone and you say, okay, we now freed up $30 million. Like, come on over. You know what I mean? Development still takes time. Things still have to be slotted in. And I don't think that's the approach that Stadia was looking for, because you want to systemically build things up long term. So I think what Google looked at is they looked at their approach with SG&E being a major staple and how they were going to move forward, even though SG&E wasn't going to produce much up until, maybe 2024, something like that. I think they looked at that and they said, you know what? We have to repivot. We have to deal with the underlying structure of our product. We do better just simply getting the games that people want to play. And that's why often here we talk about, I'm going to show you guys something else. That's why often here we talk about NPD. I know a lot of us that are new creating content or new being this, in tune to what's going on day to day in gaming. Maybe you came here and you had no idea what NPD was, or had no idea at the reach that NPD had, and how important it was, and how much of a measuring tool that it was for success. I get it, but I think now I and some others have been loud enough to, we've carried the bullhorn around enough to really speak to, you need to understand the importance of NPD and understand the importance of how NPD is tied to success. And when I say success, I'm particularly talking about PlayStation and Xbox. Like, if we keep comparing Stadia to PlayStation and Xbox, we know that's a point, that's a plateau that at least at some point in time Stadia is going to have to cross in order for it to see long-term success. That, okay, what does success look like for them right now? And success for them right now looks like taking their activity, their volume, and bumping it up against NPD. NPD is very important. How important is it? Because Phil Spencer, Aaron Greensberg, and the like, Yoshida, and other big time execs, when they place high, they do well with NPD, they mention it. You know what I mean? The big question is, everybody's saying that PlayStation is running dry for the holidays. So if PlayStation is running dry for the holidays, that means that Xbox should win at least November or December NPD. Because if Xbox cannot win November or December NPD, that's really going to speak to how much saturation that they're getting. Like, people are talking about, Game Pass can be played on PC or whatever. But at the end of the day, you still got to have X amount of sales. You got to have X amount of saturation. And the biggest saturation push for Xbox right now is via Game Pass. Because a lot of these big ticket games we get that there's a billion Steam accounts. I think people are misled by that. There's a billion Steam accounts. But a lot of these big ticket games that you can get via Game Pass still require a rig that maybe 15% of Steam owners have. Like, the average Steam gamer doesn't have the type of rig to play these games. Okay? So you got to take into consideration that Xbox's biggest launch pad is still going to be the Xbox itself. PC gives it a big push, don't get me wrong. Gives it a big push. But the biggest launch pad for Xbox is going to be Xbox itself, with a big push from PC. Right. You then have to look at cloud gaming. Look at what they're able to do within their small 1% sector, which has doubled. It's fantastic, doubled in numbers. But you got to say to yourself, okay, how do they take it to the next level? And the next level is to look at, okay, what is the closest resemblance to what I'm trying to do? Like, if you look at GFN is like a PC conduit. So what GFN has to do is they gotta, when they want to take it to that next level, they, if Steam ever collects this data, how many Steam users have 3080 rigs or have GFN rigs, right? Opposed to dedicated hardware. What's that percentage? That's what I would like to see. And for Amazon, because they're subscription based, Amazon has to look at the fact that, all right, their biggest competitor would be Game Pass. So they're Game Pass is in the cloud, but that's their big. They're a cloud, a sole cloud centric version of Game Pass. So how does their channels rack up against Game Pass or Ubisoft? Well, I mean, they're not battling Ubisoft Plus because they have Ubisoft Plus as an off branch of their service. But how do they stack up against the Game Pass? How do their channels compete against that? And Stadia's thing is, even though it's not solely a cloud, it's not solely a console, but it mimics so many things of the plug and play ability of a console. You got to look at the console, the premier platform there, and say, how is Stadia stacking up against the console? It's not right now, but when they take it to the next level. In order for you to gauge that, you have to see what they're stacking up against NPD when you're looking at particularly what's going on with consoles. Okay. So great stuff to see in November. I think as we closed out this year, I think people were starting to realize that Stadia made a pivot from like really trying to be an argument against PlayStation and Xbox to say, look, if PlayStation and Xbox are your thing, great, go there. But if you're looking for, if that's not your thing, and we know there's enough of you out there to where it's not your thing because it's not convenient, it's not cost effective, it's not obtainable, then come on over here to us. We're an upgrade from your PlayStation and your PlayStation 4 and your Xbox One X. That's what Stadia is proposing. And that's a great way to start off from, because here it is, because the fact of the matter is that's what Geforce now is doing with its 3080 tier. They're saying, you know what, for those of you that are just fed up with trying to get GPUs, just get this thing. You know what I mean? Or if you're struggling to save up enough money to get a full GPU to upgrade or parts or whatever, just get our 3080 tier for gaming. I don't think in no way, shape, form, or fashion does GFN think that 3080 tier is going to overtake the sales of dedicated hardware. It's not. People are still in droves. I would say 1,000 to 1 are still going to go and get, well, not 1,000, but 100 to 1 are still going to go get dedicated hardware opposed to this. And that's okay. But that one is a big one. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of gamers out there. So if you can just get that 1%, that's enough to sustain you. And the same thing with Stadia. Stadia, if you can get that 1% to where, 100 to 1, you're going to have people that are going to say, you know what, no, I'd rather just battle it out for a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X or an S, But I think the 1% that will hold it out is significant. It's significant enough to where cloud gaming projections double in just 1 year. Last year they were talking about, expect around 7.7 billion in revenues in 2027. Now they're saying it's 13.5 billion in 2026. See what I'm saying? So, I had a great conversation with some people behind the scenes too. Very, very great conversations where there were questions asked like, well, cloud gaming will never be a 1v1 match for dedicated device gaming, and I said no. Like if you look at what GFN did with latency, and even though I'm not going to say the output is 3080 1v1, no, when you crank up a 3080 to ultra settings, and then you crank up the 3080 tier and GFN ultra settings, it's not a 1v1 match. But that gap is very small, and it's hella impressive at 1440p. You see what I'm saying? So that gap is just closing and closing and closing. And GFN, if anything, I think did a hell of a job showcasing how advanced the tech is becoming. You may not look at it and say, oh, that's the product for me. But at the very least, what GFN did is it showed you how advanced cloud technology is coming. And then we're going to see everybody else's iteration. We're going to see Stadia's iteration, which we already know is there. It's just not out on retail yet. We're going to see what Amazon can do. When Amazon takes off that barrier and they go to 4K, we're going to see, you know what I mean? We're going to see what other people can do. Okay? So understand there's going to be some serious stuff. And then, and speaking of Amazon, next week, they're going to have an announcement at the Game Awards. They're going to have a presence there. So are they going to announce that they're going to move up to 4K? That would be amazing. Are they making that announcement, or they making the announcement that they're coming out of beta, opening up, they're coming out of beta? I can't imagine them being at the Game Awards and them not coming out of beta. So I would imagine that they're coming out of beta. They are going to go up to 4K, and they're going to expand to more territories. That's my guess. And the quadfecta might be, and they're going to launch New World. You know that New World is dropped. That would really add a lot to Amazon's appeal. We'll see. We'll definitely see. But definitely some great stuff there, and it's good to see Stadia's pivot. And let's see where they go from here on out. All right. What's next on the docket? Let's talk about these Stadia channels. So I noticed this that came up because the Skylanders developer talked about using channels, and I think people misconstrued them for like Amazon channels, and what they were talking about were channels for production, playtesting, and closed betas. And you might have missed this Stadia dev blog, but if you did, we're here to help you out. All right. So let me see here. Stadia players already experience benefits of playing in the cloud. No downloads, no updates. We realize these benefits could also apply to developers who have use cases for releasing content to trusted members of the public before launch, distributing content for playtest betas, managing downloads and updates, ensuring the players have access to the correct builds, security and trust, ensuring that only trusted testers have access and that it's revoked at the end of the session when necessary. So they said they've spent the last year working to bring these benefits to them. Starting now, any Stadia partner can use the cloud to iterate on playtests and closed betas for faster than before using a feature called channels. Okay, and they give you a case study. A developer wanted to run a 500 user playtest to test their cross-platform multiplayer feature. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. So, the channels again work in a way that is optimal for developers testing these different scenarios. Again, back to the case study, a developer wanted to run a 500 user play test, to test their cross-platform multiplayer feature, but didn't want players to keep the entitlement. So you may see this, and it might be complicated for people to do this, where they got to expect the play tester to admonish their own rights themselves. And some play testers may not want to do that. They may want to say, hey, look, I still want to try this game out. All this can be done systematically through Stadia. And these new channels open up new opportunities for developers, even those that are maybe not making games for Stadia. But in order for you to utilize this, there has to be some type of porting. So even if you don't want to, if your number one goal isn't making a game for Stadia, now that you've ported it and you utilize this process, it's more likely, than not, that you would after everything goes well. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a great thing to see, again, as part of the pivot, that they continue to add these capabilities and broaden their outreach to different developers, because you got to establish these relationships. You know what I mean? And right now they can't do it solely with the player base because the player base isn't there. So if you open up other opportunities where you can engage developers and publishers, make life easier for them, that can charm them. There's a charm effect to that, to where the developers and publishers might say, hey, you know what? We really like working with this company, and they might be a little bit more malleable to bringing more games over. So you got to be savvy when approaching stuff like this. And I think this is a smart way to handle the fact that Stadia is new. They don't have a serious and deep enough gaming footprint, but they got to make up some ground in order to compete with Xbox and PlayStation in the ongoing future. I think this is the best way to speed up that process. You know what I mean? So great stuff there. Next, let's talk about. Well, you know what? And let me see if I can find the actual tweet before we move on. Let's see if I can find the tweet from Stadia themselves. I'm not Stadia, but who was it? Clive. Yeah, let me go look for my spiritual advisor, all things Stadia, Clive Linden. Here. All right, so we got Clive Linden here, who warned us to be on the lookout. Here we go. All right, so let me show you something. Here it goes right here. It says, hello, Stadia channels concept spotted in a while. This was originally mentioned in a Stadia developer blog. And this is the developer Sky Climbers. For Sky Climbers, the kickstarted game that was a phenomenon within the Stadia community, and it's coming to the Stadia platform after PC. And they said, we're excited to announce the official alpha release date. And they got details here. And Lord Vivek, shout out to Lord Vivek, he said PC, right? And Sky Climber says yes, but we're also excited. We also have exciting news about Stadia Alpha, which will be released through a new feature called Stadia Channels. And so John Scar asked, will the alpha on Stadia be the same date? With the new channels program, it is possible that we can release at the same time, though we can't confirm it if that will be the case yet. It's awesome stuff. Brian Chappelle of the Nerve Report asks, is this a feature that you have created? You have created, or did the team? Oh, okay, so yeah, I think he wasn't sure what was going on yet, that this was part of the Stadia Channels feature that was mentioned in a blog post. But this is great stuff, and it piqued everybody's interest. We're, as Stadia gamers, we're very interested about the ins and outs of the platform, because a lot of us are tech enthusiasts, a lot of us are just disenfranchised gamers from other platforms, but we're marveled at the technology. We marvel at this, and we marvel when games come over. We want to see more and more games come over. So we've become little mini subject matter experts, or from my place of employment, we call them SMEs. We become mini SMEs, on all things Stadia. So that's why when I have like the conversations that I have behind the scenes with good friends, and they say things, they're like, "Oh, you always got a quick comeback." I'm like, no, it's just that this is a whole different learning set that you have to get accustomed to than you have with dedicated devices. It's a whole different understanding. And if you don't go through that understanding process right now, you're going to be lost in the sauce when this thing becomes popular. You know what I mean? And now that we've got our feet grounded in what's going on here, when this thing becomes popular, we can elaborate and communicate what actually is going on, while the rest of y'all are like, oh, well, I mean, you know what I mean? So that's why it's important, I think, to get even in on this thing before there's any type of big groundswell, which there will be. But get in on it early and learn stuff from the inside out early, so as things start to happen, you'll have a better understanding of why they're happening, right? So cool stuff to see that it just was talked about in the Stadia blog, right? What was this? This was at the beginning of November. Look at that. Sky Climbers, about a month away, a little bit over a month away, talked about utilizing it. This is serious stuff. So when Stadia talks about these pivots, the things that they talk about in the SG&E letter, where they were going to double down with their partnerships, and they realized that, after seeing Cyberpunk, they realized what'll make Stadia more sustainable, getting you those third-party games that you want. Every time they've polled people, that's what people ask for. Not more Stadia exclusive. That was, never at the top. It was always getting the multi-platform games that people want to play. GFN doesn't have any exclusives, and they're doing well because they're getting people access to the games that people would like to play that normally had these barriers that kept them away from those games. That's all. That's the secret sauce right now while you're in the 1% stage. That's all you have to do, is feasibly get people access to the games they want to play via your product or your service. And they realized that's what they needed to do, opposed to focusing so much on creating their own and curating their own content. And now they've created the development tools to make that stuff easier. The Batman Arkham Knight game was an indication of that. You saw some DX12, I believe, options in there. Very cool stuff. It's just a sign of the future that's around the corner, and I'm very excited about that, and I know a lot of other people are as well. So yeah, also cool stuff there. Let's talk about Course. All right. Course is a game that released today. I have not played it yet, and I'm not going to be able to play it until tomorrow. And when I play it tomorrow, I'm going to do my first look, and I'm going to put it out there tomorrow. And then we'll see how people enjoy the game in totality. But from what I'm seeing, I wonder what the Metacritic is on Course right now. Course, Metacritic. From what I'm hearing, it's an open world. Let's just see the PlayStation 5 reviews. Okay, so let's take a look at the reviews right now. Right now, it's at 71 for PlayStation 5. Let's look at it for PC. 74 for PC. PlayStation 4 is not rated yet. Stadia, not rated yet. Xbox One, not rated yet. Xbox Series X is a 79. Wow. So, really not a lot of reviews on it yet, which is a shame. Look at that, 8 reviews. Yeah, we expect to see. The most is on PlayStation 5, where it's about 20 reviews, and they've given it a 71. I'm seeing some good stuff about this game though, and as far as performance and how it looks, people have been impressed about how this game looks, and they've been impressed about how it looks on Stadia. There's a performance mode and a frame rate mode, from what I understand. So it isn't a mixture of the two. I am curious though, because this was the game from the developer where they talked a lot about Gen 2.0, right? Remember that? They talked a lot about using Gen 2.0. And Gen 2.0 kind of got pulled back, it seems like. We heard some talk about ray tracing and other things that were going to be utilized. So I don't know. I mean, it's curious to see where there was so much talk about certain implementation here with Stadia, and you don't see, I haven't heard anything about ray tracing or anything like that, so I'm going to assume it's not there. But it just, it makes you wonder. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but it makes you wonder. Did Stadia originally plan to release 2.0 this year, and they looked at some things and they thought it was better not to do so? They thought it was better to maybe hold off on that, because this group was one of the biggest talking groups out there. So maybe something's going on. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just a reconfiguration type thing, to where maybe they are taking a different approach, not in a negative way, but maybe they got more powerful hardware. Who knows? But that's one thing that is peculiar that I was curious to see, like, what was going to happen with Chorus? Because there was a lot of talk about ray tracing and things like that were supposed to be coming down the pike for this game. And I don't think that it's there, even though I've heard things like it looks great on the platform and all that other stuff. I don't know. I mean, and maybe it is there. Maybe people just didn't realize it and no one said anything. But I haven't heard anything, so I'm doubtful of that. But what I will say is that it makes you more curious about what we are going to get in 2022. Is it going to be more enhanced than what it was originally planned for with Gen 2.0? Who knows? We'll have to see. But that was just one of the peculiar things that I thought occurred with this pivot. Like you saw not only that happening, but remember when we was getting those APKs and they were talking about Project Storm or Hailstorm, and then that went away. You know what I'm saying? Like they kind of squelched that. Like, what was that all about? And does it have something to do with the keynote where they talked about these new programs and they figured maybe it's better to push this back after we launch these new programs? Who knows? We'll see. Interesting stuff nonetheless, and we'll like to see how things happen. But it was kind of like a reboot in 2021 to a certain extent, and I think an effective one at that. And despite maybe some of the higher talk, res talk and ray tracing talk that we heard earlier, Chorus, the impressions that I'm getting so far, people are enjoying it. You know what I mean? So more cool stuff. All right. Last and certainly not least, I would like to talk about our good friend Tom. All right. So let me do this because he blocked me. Tom, you're a funny guy, Tom. All right. So this was a tweet sent out from Tom Warren. He said, here's a first look at the new Clarity Boost feature for the Xcloud gaming makes Xcloud streams noticeably less blurry and less soft. YouTube video of it in action here, where he's talking about the clarity boost. And I have to be honest with you, as someone who went and downloaded the Microsoft Edge Canary to access this, it reminded me of the poor man's version of Stadia Enhanced, where they upped the sharpening up a little bit. They did some post-processing with the sharpening, and and did some things there. So they're paying attention to what's going on with Stadia, and they really paid attention to what's going on with Stadia Enhanced. They took that methodology, put a swanky sticker on it and called it Clarity Boost. Leave it to Microsoft. They're funny. And to me, it doesn't make much of a difference. It doesn't. But whatever. You know what I'm saying? This one commenter in response to that talked about, I think Xcloud, until input lag improves, I can't see it being an option for games other than Madden. It was brutal trying to play Halo the other day. And Tom Warren said, yeah, input latency is the biggest issue across all game streaming services right now. Somebody else responded, honestly, Stadia and Luna are unbeatable on the input lag side. So I would avoid overgeneralizing, Tom. And he says, Stadia input latency isn't as good and is easily beaten by Geforce now. And somebody else responded, you don't go solo flawless in Destiny 2 on Stadia with bad latency, Tom. Your bias is showing. And Tom responded, Stadia is absolutely terrible for Destiny 2 on mouse and keyboard. The input latency makes it unusable. And someone else responded, can you please stop misleading people? And then Tom says, can the Stadia stands please realize there are still better streaming services out there? And then he just got butchered from there. What is, as the young kids say, he got ratioed from out there, right? Here's my thoughts on all this. There's two things happening here. First and foremost, you're going to see a heightened campaign of people try to use GFN, which, don't get me wrong, that new GFN tier is great in many ways. It is great in many ways. And I will say this, that the latency that you experience in the app, and I'm going to also assume in with the NVIDIA Shield on this new tier, is unmatched. They have the crown there. You can't deny that when you play it. However, so yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's easily beaten, but it probably, mouse and keyboard through his experience was likely better on Destiny 2 than it was with Stadia. But does that make Stadia's terrible? Like, no. So what Tom was trying to do was he was trying to utilize the things that this new tier does well as a way to speak for usage of Stadia versus GFN now across the board. Because he said things like, let me go back here. Can the Stadia stands please realize there are better streaming services out there? And that's the problem with his assessment, where it may have been in a somewhat of a fathomable state, where he says GFN's, Stadia's input latency isn't good and is easily beaten by. I wouldn't say it isn't good, but I wouldn't have argued with him if he said, even if he would have said easily beaten. I wouldn't have, easily beaten would have been over the top, but whatever. I don't think it would have been horrible. That would have just been his assessment. But you could just tell that he's one of those individuals that will look at anything possible that is happening better in his mind, or better that he thinks that'll poll better somewhere else, and use it to downplay Stadia altogether. The input latency, even on mouse and keyboard, isn't terrible, particularly for Destiny 2. Destiny 2 is one of the original games that have been worked on for the platform, and I can tell you that if there's any game that you want to complain about with mouse and keyboard, it's not Destiny 2. It's not Destiny 2. Not saying it's as great as playing natively, but shout out to Daryl Smock. He was on SSC Podcast episode 81. Shameless plug. Check it out. Check out episode 81. It was a hell of a show, where he mentioned that there were pro Destiny players that, because of all the cheating that was going on through PC, hopped on Stadia and was like, okay, yeah, I feel a little bit, of additional input latency, but it's not bad. He made some adjustments and was like, this is fantastic. This is great. Still, not as good as natively, but this is still great. And he had a great time. He was playing it multiple times. I think Joe Smock said 11 days straight or something like that he was doing it. Just playing on Stadia. I'm going to believe him over Tom Warren. But Tom Warren just says some of the most ridiculous stuff anyway. And it's not that I want to pick on him, but you got to be very cautious about this individual. He said something not too long ago that really showed that he's someone who is lucky to have the blue check mark that he has and the accolades that he does have. I'm not saying that the guy hasn't done hard work. He probably does a lot of hard work behind the scenes, but the output, which despite any of the hard work that you do behind the scenes, the output that you're responsible for as someone in his position is very lackluster. He said something and it really wasn't relative to Stadia at all. And I'll close out with this and why, you got to be very cautious when you're listening to Tom Warren. So, in his defense of Xbox, he had noted that when Xbox Game Pass fell flat in its performance and things of that nature, and it had a negative impact on its projections. They had to make it fell short of its projections, and people were like, "Well, Game Pass grew 30%, and 30% is great." And yes, 30% is great under normal circumstances. But if you're in a situation to where, because of a lockdown or because of other variants, 30% then becomes the norm, and a lot of people undercut their performance just a little bit, just so they don't run into the situation. So you undercut some of your own, original rough draft projections to come up with this, and you still miss that. Let me give you an example. I run a hotel chain, and the city where I run that hotel chain, the Olympics are coming. So normally the year or the time period where I would see 7% growth, I'm expecting 50% growth. Try to hedge my bets. I say, you know what? For all intents and purposes, let's say we're going to get 35% growth. where it's expected that I'm going to get 50% growth. I don't want to go too high, but I can't go too low because analysts will kill me. They'll be like, well, hold on. We're expecting 50% growth because the Olympics are coming and hotels are going to be, they're going to be a top commodity. Like, why are you going so low? So I settle for 35, right? If I undercut that and I still fall short, it doesn't matter if 30% normally is good. It's not good under these projections. It's not good under this climate. It's never good to fall short on projections. Never. So we had a group of people, some of that surprised me, some that do data analytics and know about the market. Well, maybe they do more data analytics, but they don't know so much about the market, that were trying to excuse that. And that was a whole different argument, but it was sad to see that. But it was really peculiar to see what Tom Warren said. Tom Warren said, in response to Microsoft falling short of its projections because of Game Pass, he said, we're really arguing about some suits making a couple extra dollars, referencing the stock price. Like the stock price only affects the people in the suits. And I gasped when I heard that. Why did I gasp? Because in my 25 plus years in dealing with Fortune 500 stuff, managing managers, and having to sit across from employees, when we fell short of our projections and it affected our stock price, meaning it affected our bonuses and our cost of living increases, our raises, and me having to tell those employees, because of X, Y, having to get the corporate bullet points and sit there and sorry, Mary Jane, Bobby Joe, because we fell short of our stock price and because of these projections, there will not be a Christmas bonus, or your cost of living increase is only 1%. And in some of those instances, I've had people cry. Oh my gosh, I was really banking on this year because I moved, or I'm having surgery, or this. I've had people cry in front of me because of this. Not suits. People that are trying to earn a living paycheck to paycheck. Woo Tom Warren for I don't know who. Again, he must be a great paper pusher behind the scenes, but I don't know who designated this guy's output as the output to be. But they're doing less fortunate than him. I've had to sit across from people from like that, because of companies falling short of projections. This is buffoonery that's dangerous. Because when this type of ignorance hits and we're not aware of how the market works, we don't keep companies on their toes. And when they fall short, guess who gets hit first? The low man on the totem pole. So I really urge everybody to take this into consideration when you're listening to this individual. A lot of times when he's out here on social media, he's blurting things that he does not know what he's talking about. That blue check mark can be dangerous. And it's dangerous because, again, when we're not aware, we always get the wool thrown over our eyes. Stock price isn't just about suits. It has a trickle-down effect. Buffoonery. So that's why I wanted to highlight what Tom, most of the time I ignore what he says about Stadia as of late. But this buffoonery of his is just, wow. I don't know. Does Uncle own The Verge or something? I don't get it. And I hate focusing on people like this, but misinformation can be dangerous. Dangerous. And he's a main facilitator of it. So with that said, that's it from your boy. I hope you appreciated this. We're not going to run this for too long. We're already over an hour. But again, we're going to have more surprises for you coming in the following weeks. But let us know what you think about this. Again, the Saturday Checkup. Let us know what you think. And with that said, you all have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day, and stay tuned soon for our my first look at Chorus. Until next time, have a wonderful gaming day. Peace.